I don't know. We, that was never about the turkey. It was only about the dog part.
Well, I don't know. Interjection.
I know.
Is it just down the hall?
Once you're done.
Sure.
I got
No joke.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, good.
Did you stay out of rain at tennis last night?
It came around 10:30, I think, but I think it just skirted the We've got an exciting agenda today. Welcome, everyone. Public comments, we did receive some in our mail regarding some of the tree damage due to the big storms. And with that, I'd just like to thank the parks crew who has been working tirelessly to address all the storm damage that's out there. Trees have been everywhere and you've gotten things, out of roadways and gotten back to business. I know there is still a lot of work to remain and it'll take some time, but the city's back in business. So thank you so much for lots of time hours. Let's go to approval of the July 16th minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call? Or no, we don't have to roll. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And we have approval of the July 29th minutes. Approved.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. We have Charlie Frank from the Reds Community Fund joining us to present the Owl's Nest field renovation. Welcome, Charlie.
Well,
How are you?
we're doing well.
Good.
And thank you for the opportunity. We have some slides to show you of our project. This has been in the works for a couple of years. I wanted to also thank Jennifer Spicer from the Parks Foundation for being a great partner throughout this whole process, as well as Jason, of course. Also wanted to introduce Karen Schmidt from Playground Equipment Services. He has been a fabulous partner to the Reds Community Fund on numerous projects, including several that have connections to parks, including Bond Hill, where his fabulous sand-based material has been a game changer in every way. We can talk about that as we go. First, I wanted to start with some history. We were part of the project that literally brought the field back up to street level back in 2011. This was of course, a dirt field, and it was part of the major parks renovation that took place that culminated in 2011. It was exciting for us to be a part of it. And it really brought the field back into use for recreational play, knot hole, for Walnut Hills softball, a lot of other partners. So this was a big part of the project, and I think it was also important in that it brought a lot of energy to the Evanston side of the park down on Fairfax Avenue. Had a clinic with Reds resources there the night of the dedication. So a little bit of history there, and we had a great experience there at the time. Working with Steve Schuckman and Jenny Rosenthal and Ray Buick. So we're very excited about the possibility of taking this field to the next stage. I wanted to show another field. This is the Blonde Recreation Complex down on Riverside Drive. The reason I'm showcasing this field is it was the first major project that we did with Eric and Playground Equipment Services. It's a beautiful field. The the visuals, the brown turf looks more natural than a lot of that harder brown turf that you see with traditional synthetic fields. And Eric could tell you better than I that when this field was underwater last year due to flooding in the spring of 25, it was playable within about 3 days. So, I mean, the surface is very pliable and looks great. It's held up well. And again, we'll get into the benefits of Eric's sand-based surface, the safety, the reduction in heat that can sometimes emanate from the surface. So again, I just wanted to give you the visual. This is a showpiece, one of the proudest projects that we've been a part of with the Reds Community Fund over the years, just because it brought in a major partner of ours and it has such a visual as you're driving down Riverside Drive. So here we are back at Owl's Nest. You can see this is the layout, and we were showing that the infield becomes synthetic. That's the direction that the Reds and the Reds Community Fund and CRC have moved in over the last decade or so. We used to do a lot of dirt projects. They're very hard to sustain, and they're hard for the communities and the municipalities to maintain. For a baseball specific purpose, baseball and softball, the synthetic material literally levels the playing field, pardon the pun, because first of all, boys and girls of any age can play on it. If we're building a traditional grass and dirt infield with a clay mound with 90-foot base paths, as we've done, it literally takes any girls off that field. You can't safely play a softball game if there's permanent clay or dirt mound 60 feet 6 inches from home plate. Plus at 90-foot base paths, you're eliminating any kids that are basically 12, 13 or under. Just as important, especially as our weather patterns continue to become more chaotic and unpredictable, or unfortunately predictable, these surfaces save games. We worked with partners to build Bernie Stowe Field over at Riverside Park in the Stantsville area about 7-8 years ago. And the year after we built it, they played 6 games on it because we helped build the dugouts and we helped build a concession space and we put up a scoreboard and we built all these beautiful amenities, didn't touch the field. And it was soaking wet for the majority of the spring, as can often be the case. So literally these fields are game changers. Our Youth Academy, which is another parks partnership, and great gratitude there, 12 years into that project in Roselawn. We started there when the Reds moved in and opened it in 2014. We had 1 synthetic infield. We now have three synthetic infields and 1 full synthetic field. And when I asked one of my colleagues years ago, come on, wouldn't you rather play on turf? And he was a former professional player. His response was, I'd rather play. And so the synthetic material, I'm like, I got no answer for that. So yeah, the synthetic material really is a necessity, and you see it more and more. And our goal is to get it more into urban neighborhoods. You see a lot of the synthetic fields in more affluent spaces and more suburban communities, and they're very functional and they're fabulous. We're really trying to get more and more of these in the urban core, and we've been doing that, partnering with CRC. Madisonville last year, Avondale back in 2023, the PNC field with Eric's partnership also in 2023. So really trying to make an effort to do more of this in the urban core. This slide's very important because it gives us a menu of options. Right now, we've got the funding for the ball field and for the dugouts. That's our baseline. It would be a very, very good project. We want to keep working with you all and working with the community and other partners, and I'll talk about that in a moment, so that we can take it from good to great. When you all are opening or reopening this facility in 2027, we would love to be a part of making the entire complex great. If we have the infield and the dugouts, it's going to be really close, but I think we owe it to the neighborhood, we owe it to you and all the community partners to look into other work, such as the bleachers and more seating for fans, because we think it's going to get a lot of additional usage. Signage, we have spaces there we could put up really impactful vinyl signage, windscreen signage to recognize parks, to recognize CRC and other partners. Scoreboards are great features. They're digital now. They're really easy to operate. And it adds a lot there. You could add signage there as well. Fencing, be nice to improve some of the fence lines that have been there and basically haven't been upgraded since 2011. And then the outfield is nice, but if you're putting in a graded field, we would need to shore up some soft spots in the outfield as well. So this is really what it would take to make it an A+ project. One of the partners is already here. We have worked for years with the Reds, with the Rosie Reds organization. I'm sure many of you know that they were originally a female fan group. They are now open to anyone. They're still a phenomenal community partner of the Reds. They have come to us within the last year and indicated that they wanted to make a 6-figure spend to have their field, and so that they could name and that they could also program around, volunteer with. We spent about 6 months showing them a handful of different CRC fields and park locations. This is where they want to be. And they made that determination to us almost a year ago. So I also want to use this opportunity today to just gauge your comfort level on having the field branded for a community partner and a nonprofit like the Rosie Reds. Bless you. I think it would be something that would just bring more, these are projects, the more partners you have, the more connected they are, and the more traction that they get. So I'm really hoping that this is something that we would all embrace, and that within a short period of time, we could alert their board and their constituents that this is something that, again, would be approved and hopefully seen as a positive with no real risk. Certainly, I'm familiar with some of the challenges that you've all encountered when it comes to synthetic material. And understanding that you all have plenty of work to do without wanting to step into another situation that may become political. All I can tell you is that there is no vendor like Eric. And I could get up here and tell you why this material is different than most, but I hope it's okay if I invite Eric to maybe say a few words about a material that he has patented through his company. So Eric, if you would want to join me and maybe talk about what everyone sees on the street.
Yeah, as Charlie said, this turf system isn't like the traditional turf system with the chrome rubber infill. So we were awarded a patent on this system 3 years ago. Positive about the system is it's 80% post-consumer content, so it's almost all recyclable. It is all recyclable in a life cycle. And as Charlie talked about maintenance, the maintenance for the community is greatly reduced, like 80% reduction. The fields for we maintain for the West Community Fund, LeBlanc, Bond Hill, Madisonville, we do maintenance on it twice a year, so twice a week. So it's an incredible savings for the maintenance and allows the maintenance teams, the great maintenance team that CRC and Park Board has, to manage other aspects of what they need to do with the parks. Another positive about this is even though it's high school ready, varsity ready, it is also ADA accessible. So we can take our special needs athletes can come and play on this thing. Is 100% ASTM certified, ADA accessible. Another positive about the life cycle of this field is when it comes to lifetime replacement, which is 10, 15 years, you're not replacing the entire system. You're just replacing parts of the system, the head use system. So your replacement costs in the future are dramatically reduced. And when it does come time to do regeneration of the field, the material we're taking off is 100% recyclable as well. It is pervious. There's no water sheeting on it, so you don't have to manage any of that issues. The manufacturer spec is 5 gallons of water per minute per square foot. So it drains incredibly well. And as Coach Claire from Bond Hills, they play down at LeBlanc, and during the spring for CPS, the weather's incredibly unpredictable. I coached at Walnut for 9 years, and it was hard to get games on. Now they're hosting their away games at their home field because they have a field the kids can play. So that's a huge positive. So they're getting the kids are able to get the games in. And again, another aspect of it, we can keep it 30 to 50 degrees cooler than traditional drum rubber infill. And it also has a head to ground, head impact criteria of a 5-foot fall. So kiddos going head to ground, it tests at ASTM 1487 for a 5-foot head to ground impact. They shouldn't have any issues. Thanks.
Eric mentioned Walnut Hills. We're going to show a letter of support. So, as we've been talking to the community, and Susie joined us for an open house at the Evanston Recreation Center back in late April. And as did Jason, as did Daniel Betts from CRC, as did Jennifer. And so, oh, that's right, as did Phyllis.
Yes.
Thank you. So a couple of the folks that attended have provided us with letters of support. This is from Mary Ward, who not only represents the Evanston Community Council, but several other organizations with a stake in this sort of investment. And Eric mentioned Walnut Hills and Coach Thornberry. As Eric indicated, there's tremendous interest from their point of view to get back closer to campus and be able to host their games on a field that they can count on. And that's not going to cost them games due to wet fields, even when the sun is out. So it sounds as though, and these are just two examples, the response that we heard back in April seemed to be exclusively positive. And we're certainly open to any questions about next steps. We're obviously working closely with Jason and we'll follow his lead on the timeline. Understanding that this would be a 2027 dedication. It works out exceptionally well for the Reds because we typically have one major synthetic field dedication celebration each year. This past year, we were actually out in Southeast Indiana for the first time at South Ripley High School. We've been in Northern Kentucky. We've been all throughout Cincinnati. We would love to make Owl's Nest kind of a tentpole event in partnership with CRC and Parks to celebrate not only the ball field, but all the other magnificent upgrades to Owl's Nest Park.
Commissioners?
I was at the community meeting and the community support was there. They were extremely enthusiastic about the project. And I think it's a great partnership with the community. And I think it's a good idea that we have those kind of meetings so that we can gauge how they feel about going forward.
I just want to extend, I have one semi-technical question, possibly from Mr. Schmidt. The EPDM, that's a shredded or is that a sheeted? I'm used to seeing EPDM as a sheet for a roof, but this is a shredded to allow for the.
It's recycled shredded rubber and it's put together with the binder. So it's another positive about it. There's no microplastics, nothing can escape. So it's all bound together underneath the system. That's what the patent implies. It's all protections underneath the turf. So
Charlie, bring that sample up so that John can touch and feel it, because I can see the cut of it.
Well, having spent a number of spring afternoons in the 1980s knee deep in the mud at LeBlanc Field, I am very enthusiastic about any alternative to. I believe it was you, Charlie, that said that it saves games, and that's interesting. I don't know, Susie, you've seen it, Phyllis, have you?
It looks like a sheet cake, but I warn you, it's not edible.
Cake, you were speaking my language for a second there, but thank you. Thank you for bringing that level of amenity to, there's gonna be a lot of activity and a lot of excitement, a lot of energy around Owl's Nest, and to see that built with multi-phases of the project is really exciting. So thank you for indulging a wonky question.
Eric, thank you for being here to answer it. I mean, we're just talking now formally for the first time, so very eager to take on any questions that you have following the meeting, any concerns. Ms. McCallum, to your point, the ongoing availability that we have, if there are opportunities to speak with other communities and any concerns, again, to avoid previous issues, given this material and Parks' history of not typically using synthetic materials, we are very eager and willing to have those conversations, take on any questions. And if you don't have them today, but you have them, obviously, Jason and Jennifer and I can continue to talk and plan.
Jason, I have a question for you regarding your bringing up the Rosy Red situation, knowing that the community fund must raise money in order to do these things. What would our stand, would we have any stand on labeling the field?
Traditional, yeah, I mean, it's up to the park board to name things. And so, as throughout the conversations with Charlie and with the Reds Community Fund and the Rosy Reds, we've talked about this potentially being the Rosy Reds field. Obviously, as Charlie talked about, we've still got to figure out kind of what the total budget is for this project and what all the amenities are. The timing's perfect because we are 2 months into the construction drawings for Owl's Nest Park. Travis and I are optimistic that we'll get those hopefully early January, February of next year, and then have that out to bid. And so that gives us plenty of time to kind of build out what this whole program will be, have it ready to be the construction timeline for that to fit in with who the master contractor is for the overall site. And then I think at that time we can bring forward kind of a naming rights opportunity for you all to approve.
I'm just questioning, how soon do you need to give them word that this is going to happen?
I'm eager to do that as soon as possible. Whatever process is required in order to get, I mean, they've been generous and patient and they have not been cornering us in any way, but I do think that having the ability to name a field for them is a game changer. This is clearly where they want to be. If we lost that ability, it would likely, at the very least, change the terms of their interest in committing financially. So I hope it's something that sooner than later that we can get resolved.
By way of indicative feedback, I would say, obviously, we need to follow the process and do that properly, but it certainly seems like an investment that provided the foundation team is on board with that sort of protocol and scaling. I would be in favor of it. That is not the formal approval, but it's just to the extent you can express there was at least some positive feedback. I hope you would do that.
Couple questions. First, great job on this. I mean, it's evident that you've done a lot of work with the community and this is the kind of engagement that we like to see, and you've covered all your bases and come in and present a really compelling case. So thank you for all the work you've done to get it to this point. As far as the budget for the project, I see the scope that you have. Do you have a budget yet for the total project?
Yeah.
Let me fully ask my question. Do you have a budget for the total project? And what is the plan for fundraising? Is there expectation that the park board would be involved in that? The Parks Foundation in totality, the Reds Fund in totality? What's the game plan? And then what's the timeline?
So, we were exploring this opportunity as part of our community makeover project with CRC and ENG and the zoo and other partners last summer. When Burnett Woods was being talked about, and I know it was an issue for you all to navigate.
We don't have to discuss it.
We decided to put this one on hold at Jason's recommendation, which and also not just putting it on hold because of politics, but putting it on hold because the overall park renovation was coming, and I think we sensed that there was synergy to do this together. At the time, the project was in the low 200,000s. Eric estimates that there's about a 12% increase in cost since the summer of 2025. We're also exploring the possibility of taking the original footprint from 60-foot base paths to 80-foot base paths. 60 feet makes it playable for younger boys and girls, but also ready for softball. 80 feet gives it, ability to take it up to older baseball levels, so a little more flexibility. The dugouts are already paid for and in Eric's shop. You know, so we're at a point right now where if we had to go with what we've got, we could probably value engineer it down to a reasonable level, but to get the outfield grading, to get some additional seating, to do the fencing upgrades, to add some of the signage and scoreboard elements, you know, it's going to take some additional dollars. So there is no obligation for Parks and the Parks Foundation to participate financially. I believe that we could get this project done today if needed, but there is an opportunity to partner to, I think, take it to an even higher level, if that makes sense.
So now I'm even a little bit more confused than I was before I asked the question, because you gave us a scope of work that you intend for the project.
Yeah.
When will you define the scope of the work and have the associated budget to go with it? It sounds like there are a couple different levels at which this could be delivered, and you haven't quite figured out which that is. But let's assume for a moment that Rosie Reds take on this field, they get the sponsorship of it, they get the name, you have a scope. Do we have a budget for that project and a plan to fund it? Is that?
Yes, so with CRC's commitment, if we were able to bring in the Rosie Reds commitment with the dollars that the Reds have, community fund has already spent and have committed, you know, we're at about the $250,000 level. So, and that again would get us to the finish line for the ball field and the dugouts. There's still some wiggle room, Molly, when it comes to whether we would have the smaller footprint with the 60-foot bases or the slightly larger footprint with the 80-foot bases. We can, you know, we do have budget options that I could follow up with Jason. I mean, as early as today. I mean, we have 2 or 3 different menus. You know, if somebody came in with a angel gift and, you know, we know that we could potentially spend up to about $350,000 to make this thing extraordinary. So we're somewhere in that 250 to 350 gap.
Got it. Okay. Well, as Commissioner Nyer said, we have taken guidance in partnership with the foundation in the past on total project and naming rights associated with that. And as we get a total budget, that will be an easy answer to give. But I think it's also fair to say from an indicative perspective that we're very interested in the investment and excited to have the Rosie Reds involved, and of course, the Reds Community Foundation. Community Fund, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Crystal. Come on up. It's always a pleasure to have you on the agenda.
My colleague John join us.
Right, come on in, John. Conservation and land management update, one of my very favorite topics.
Well, I know it's been a long time coming, but we've had a good year of getting our team onboarded. As you all know, we've had pretty much a pretty small team, 3 full-time people focused on conservation over years past. And last October, we were fortunate to be able to hire John as the conservation land management crew leader, which was a vacancy that sat open for about a year after Garrett got promoted into the urban forestry supervisor. We also hired 2 new natural resource specialists. So for the past year, we've really been digging into just giving everybody kind of the lay of the land, what the role is, all of our historic programs, and then finally getting to the point where we're starting to get into innovation and what's next. So excited to give you this, hopefully not long-winded presentation, but I feel like every topic in here, we could probably give a whole presentation.
There's some self-scouting right there.
Yeah. So as Kate pulls it up, I'll just go ahead and get started. And we'll start on slide 2, Kate. So the conservation land management section, as you all know, is within the Division of Natural Resources. And the core objectives and scope of work that this team focuses on is really the management, sustainability and enhancement of our 61 miles of natural surface trail, as well as the forest management of our naturalized areas, within 3,820 acres, which come to find out is about 85% of the entire park board land that's managed. So this is in an effort to also meet the mission of the Cincinnati Park Board, which is, as you know, to conserve, manage, sustain, and enhance parks' natural and cultural resources and public green space for the enjoyment, enlightenment, and enrichment of the Cincinnati community. So beyond sustaining these natural resource assets and natural surface trail system, a big portion of what we do is community engagement and outreach through volunteer stewardship. On average, we have had about 200 plus events in partnership with various CPACs and conservation focus groups throughout the park system. But in addition to that, the whole team kind of serves as subject matter experts on all things natural resources. So we do this in partnership with Travis and his team for capital improvement projects to ensure that as development is happening, we're minimizing the natural resource impacts overall, as well as holding any of those outside entities like Duke that are coming into park to be accountable for any resources that are damaged. The team is also pulled, now that we have Kara on board, which is amazing, but also becoming a lot of great deep thinking work to fulfill the requirements of various grant opportunities, which has really been a learning experience for myself and our team over the past 6 months as we've dug into some of the bigger grant opportunities that are out there. But I would say probably a good 50% of the work that we do is working with community members and CPACs. So as noted, we still have a very small team, but as you'll see as we go through the presentation, the amount of work that we're getting done is impeccable, and that would be absolutely impossible without the dedication of our community members. So for the first time, now that we have added a third natural resource specialist, historically, we had 2 full-time natural resource specialists, one focused on conservation, one focused on trails. They both worked system-wide, and I would say we're both constantly kind of exhausted and potentially burnout. So as we got the third in, we started thinking about this differently, and instead of having 2 folks that cover the entire park board, we broke the park system into districts. So we have our West District, which, as you can see, is largely Mount Airy and the properties that are surrounding that. Our Central District are areas that we really are kind of new to conservation, but also some of our highest values. So like Caldwell, those kind of, really nice forests. So, and then we have our East District, which is, some of our grand champions with California Woods and Alden Palms and Stanberry. And so if you flip to the next one, so I know it's a lot of information, but I love this, that I have it all on one page. So this is the makeup of the land management section. So we have John Aguilar Dwyer as our maintenance crew leader. We have our 3 district natural resource specialists. Greg oversees the West District. Greg's been with us since the beginning of the program. James oversees the Central District, and Cameron oversees the East District. And then we have a year-round part-time volunteer coordinator, which as we get into the CPAC work that we're doing, you can really tell how much good work he does at just, maybe 30 hours a week. And then we have 4 in-field support natural resource seasonals that we hire annually. And so as we were breaking these districts up, we were really my goal was to try to minimize, equally distribute acreage, but also equally distribute the number of CPACs that are conservation-based organizations that we have. And then also within those conservation-based groups, they're all at different skill levels, different levels of development. Some of them are very independent versus some that are just coming on board. So take a little more, work alongside them. But overall, and then also the division between the miles of trail. You can see Greg has the most acreage and most trails in the West, and that is largely because he holds down Mount Airy. So, but he's in one area, so he doesn't have to go too far. So these are some of the core parks that we're focused in right now, where we have active conservation stewardship program groups, and some of the groups that we're working with, so. And then this is my mind map. So I think the title sums it up. So essentially what our team is doing, we are largely focused on forest management, and trails are the conduit into that forest, so are a subset of that. So each team member, every park, our goal is to ultimately have a land management plan that guides kind of our long-term goals within those areas. And so I really wanted to break down like what all goes into a land management plan. And this is pretty much it. So there are three major buckets. The first one is just analyzing the park system. So you're looking at the plant community, the wildlife community, the water resources, the geography, which geography is very unique because it also looks at past land use history and are the utilities on site, cultural resources. These are all the things that you kind of want to know about a property as you enter in to start really prioritizing the restoration work that you start to do there. So say you have a property like French Park that was an old ag field. There are areas of French Park that are really high quality forest, and then there are other areas that are super gnarly and just need like to be razed to the ground and rebuilt. And all of that is based on past land use history. So in partnership with Matt DeBona, we've been able to really kind of dig into some of the resources that are out there from the state and national level to help kind of guide that historical framework, old aerial photos that we can pull up when we're in the field to see like, what was this, so really cool integration with GIS. And then after that analysis, then we do the prioritization. So some areas will just go right into preservation. They're high quality areas, the concentration of invasive species is low, the plant community is good, we have a functioning ecosystem. I would say of all the park board property, maybe 15 to 20% is that. So we're looking at about 80% that is in that restoration category. And with that, we're looking at how we want to manage invasive species removal before we go in to start planting and seeding and restoring that forest. So that has a whole other bucket of like, whether we can do it in-house, whether the certain areas can be done by volunteers versus contracting out. And then always with restoration, any areas that we open up, if we're not managing the deer population, we go in and plant trees, they get eaten to the ground. So managing deer is a constant piece of this as well. And then that third bucket is really education and outreach. So if we're not telling our story, the forest is can be out of sight, out of mind. And I feel like that was maybe the historical, maybe viewpoint of the park board, or there just wasn't much focus in conservation and land management. So a huge piece of what we do, while it may be the smallest piece on the mind map, this is where we spend a lot of our time, really building out both the volunteer stewardship, and I really see trails as a part of this. They're the conduit to come in. It's the first area that we focused on to really clear trail corridors, and then concentrating in areas where we have our naturalists out programming to where when you go into the forest, it feels comfortable and inviting. Yeah.
Deserve a big breath.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a week. So some of our goals and objectives. So we set out at the beginning of the year, again, largely a brand new team, to kind of set what do we hope to accomplish in our first year as this new team. All of our natural resource specialists are on board and working through development of 5 land management plans a year. Now they might not be, Greg has Mount Airy, so he's not necessarily taking on all of Mount Airy. But we have like Mount Airy West, Mount Airy proper, different zones essentially, to really go through all those analysis pieces. And then from there, our land management plans are largely prioritized based on both where we have the highest conservation value within an area, as well as where we have active conservation activities happening. We have a group that's already there, that's interested, that needs like work to be kind of fed to them year after year. And then obviously trail corridors. Our goal is to, review and clear back, make sure all of our trail corridors are as clear as possible. And if we have trails that are completely, in disarray, then closing those down to focus on the next while we work to get those contracted out or, rerouted and whatnot. In addition to that, kind of going back to the conservation stewardship program, our ultimate goal is to cultivate this community of conservation. And I feel like that's really where, you know, we have a first place award from ORPA for this kind of work. And I would say this is what's really made the rubber hit the road, and really kind of expanded our capacity to really start to address invasive species in a way that I don't think we've ever been able to do before. And then ultimately, our team will decide, you know, what volunteers can do. Typically, it's going to be bush honeysuckle. You know, there's not a lot of thorns. Like, we have very limited folks that are out, like actually doing foliar spraying, which is like where you kind of hose down all of the like invasive ground cover. So our team really focuses on those hard to treat areas, the gnarliest, if you would, of areas. And I thought this graph was really awesome. We had we attended a presentation recently where this was like the main point that they were making. And so what you see there is like essentially the introduction of a non-native species that then becomes invasive. So if it's just getting started, you can do eradication. If more time goes by and nothing's done, then it's containment. And then pretty much where we're at 80% of our property is that very far area where we are in kind of the highest cost of, if this is something, if we want to really take our forest back, it's going to take a lot of time, focused energy and capital funding to get there. But the big way that we do that is through our conservation stewardship program. So really the kind of core focus of this, again, is to kind of spark curiosity in our natural areas and really engage with our community in a meaningful way to both explain in layman's terms how forest communities work. I feel like a lot of my generation and the generations that have come after me just think of the forest as this, like that's the way that it is. But it shouldn't be. When I speak to the generations before me, you know, you could see through the forest. Once you get an area restored, you can really see like what should be there, what shouldn't. So really educating our community members about what a healthy forest is so that they can then further communicate that out. In addition, the CCS program is this like kind of flow chart that you see here, whereas new volunteers come in, they get engaged, we go for a hike and, you know, walk and learn. They tend to keep coming back. And so then if they want to do more, they can become a trained service person, which allows them to actually apply herbicide. And the volunteer group leader is part of the certification process that we rolled out in the past, I would say 2 years, where we are training folks how to run invasive species management events. So from a safety standpoint, from a volunteer recruitment and engagement standpoint, just really like, and this has been kind of like our army that has been out there really tackling all of this good work. So after 5-6 years of, you know, kind of developing this program and rolling it out, we are now up to 21 active conservation stewardship groups across 16 parks. And with the addition of a new natural resource specialist in areas that hadn't historically, like we were over capacity, we couldn't take on any more groups. So with James coming on with the central group, 3 new CCS sites have been added in the past, you know, year. So making headway. And so just a 25-26 breakdown, we had about 231 volunteer events. Some of these all mostly led by these volunteer group leaders that set up calendars throughout the year, that our team then goes and supports as needed. So that essentially equated to 6,400 volunteer hours, which has a value of $207,000. So that's where we're in that high bell curve, but finding ways to overcome it. In addition, some of the trainings and certification events that we did over 10 hike and learn programs where we're just walking into the woods and talking about what we're seeing rather than just like, here's a handsaw, go cut. We had 5 trained service person certification events, as well as 2 volunteer group leader trainings, so training the trainers. And then we rolled out our first winter vine ID and treatment training. I think it was last year, something like that, 25. But we're doing so well that other conservation-based organizations are like, how do we get involved? So we have now started the CCS collaboration where we're working with Mill Creek Alliance, Cardinal Land Conservancy, and the Civic Garden Center. They have essentially bought into the same volunteer management portal, Better Impact. And through Crystal's work and Brennan's work, they have worked with those teams to kind of get them up to speed on how to build the program. So now, as we have trained service persons that are passing our exam, they're also certified to go and work on other conservation-based organizations. And so what this has really done is it's spread the load. So instead of us having to host 5 trained service person certifications and 5 volunteer group, so they're essentially taking on those trainings as well. And anyone that's trained through their program to the same standards can also volunteer for Cincinnati Parks. So ways to just kind of compound and grow. Success builds on success there. In addition, this past year, Matt DePona has really leaned into the program and has really helped us develop a better system for tracking the invasive species that volunteers are doing. Back in the day, they would kind of draw on a map, send it to us, and that would be another admin task that we would have to do is go in and put in the record. But now we have volunteers that are actually, putting in the records so we can actually pull the data. And the next slide kind of gives an overview of that. So it automates a lot of the information that you have to put in anytime that you apply herbicides. So like weather conditions, what park you're in. Essentially, you can kind of turn this on. You can walk the area that you did, put in essentially your name, what species you were targeting, what method you were using, and then it autofills most of the rest of it. And so Matt put this slide together that like bottom right-hand corner is like all the coding that he did just to do the weather enrichment functions. So Matt is brilliant and has really leaned into this and helped us a lot. And then the next slide kind of shows the outcomes of that, right? So this is based on year, based on those districts that I told you about. You can see East is an outlier because Peter Wimberg is a beast. I think he had maybe 80% of the
46.
He had 46% of all of the records that were put in the East. So he is out there constantly. He's pretty much the Lorax of all park forest. But also what I think you can see here is the information that we were missing over the years. So once the Survey 123 tool came out, you can see that we're really starting to get the records from the field rather than a volunteer forgets to pass the piece of paper along. So getting there. And then in-house, so this is a cumulative over the past, few years since we started. We've been using the Survey 123 data, which with the improvements that Matt's done, we're also incorporating in-house, so saving some time there. But you can see here kind of year over year where our areas are, kind of where we've had our focus. And yeah, we're getting there. So about 454 acres cleared in-house. And again, that's like the gnarliest areas. So it takes a little more time. So really proud of the team, but I'd say on average, we're hitting at about 40 acres per year. So. And then anytime that you go in and you clear all the invasives, you have to replant, especially in areas where you don't have a solid native seed bank coming back. So one of the projects that we have endeavored to really dive into is native seed collection, native seed propagation. And Greg Torres, who's a brilliant botanist, has really done an amazing job putting together pretty much a native seed bank out at Warder Nursery. Like what was an area that was just covered in euonymus and kind of sloped back to the building that's out there. Right behind our trailer is now this kind of beautiful native garden. And as it's going to seed, we have down days, the team end of the day, they come back, we're collecting seed out of there and then propagating that and restoring the cold frames that are in Warder as well. So really kind of getting water back to some of those like older uses that it had in its original intent. So this project is just really getting started. Everything was seeded in about, it wasn't this spring, but last spring. So you can kind of see the transition over time as the spring growth to what we now have summer and then our first harvest this year. And then to go into as noted, if we don't manage the deer population, our restoration efforts are largely in vain. Anything that we plant will get wrecked or destroyed through deer browse or, those that getting that velvet off of their antlers. So again, we have very high deer densities. Every 2 years, we do an infrared study. Our goal is about 20 deer per square mile. We're at least 50 to 100 in some areas. So while, the bow hunting program is right now our only tool, we had been doing night hunts and sharpshooting in the past. We haven't mobilized that in the past 5 years, largely from a capacity standpoint. But still starting to see the benefits and also investing more time into our hunters. So if you go to the next slide, I think we given some of those statistics. So just the 25 season, so 25, 26, so this is last season. We had over 4,000 volunteer hours, which has a $154,000 value to it. 84 deer were harvested across the 19 various management zones, which was a 10% reduction in the 5-year average. But it's still comparable. Some of the things that we've been doing to kind of work to get higher numbers is more dedicated hunter engagement. So John and the team have been working to really bring our new hunters into the conservation stewardship program so that there's more ties to the forest, more ties to the community beyond just the hunting program. As well as starting to really think through, like, how do we get more minors involved? What we're finding is that the program is about 15 years old, and the folks that have been historical hunters are starting to age out, and we're not necessarily seeing that next generation come up. So how do we start to cultivate that next generation of forest managers and hunters? So this past year, we did have 187 hunters qualify. So that was up a pretty significant amount, and I would say about 40% of them were brand new to the program. So there are lots of reasons for that, but won't get into them. We have some more hunters coming on. We have great coordinators that are working with them, and we're starting to really kind of roll out a more intentional hunter engagement program is the goal.
What's the deer population as compared to where it would be ideally?
That's a great question. I can get back to you on that. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know if we've got 3 times as many deer as we ought to have or 10 times.
Yeah, our annual flyover is coming up in March of next year. But we can look back at the data. That's something else that we're trying to is take the data that we have out of spreadsheets, get it into GIS, compare that against the area that we're covering, and kind of have that readily answerable. But we do have the data. I just have to dig into it, and I can give you a more clear snapshot.
The plantings that you do of the trees in the forest, are you wrapping the trunks?
A lot of them, what we're doing, we're experimenting with different methods. Historically, what we've done is cage them, which is great, but it's also labor and time and material intensive. So our natural resource specialists have also been working to, instead of just chipping up all the honeysuckle that we're cutting down or the invasives that we're cutting down, dragging it and starting to use that as a barrier, which we're seeing success with that. But either way, honeysuckle breaks down really quick. So it's really a multifaceted approach. We are also now involved in the Greater Cincinnati Sustainability Collaborative, which are land managers in parks and other public spaces from around the region, and are starting to learn from each other about what works, what doesn't, how to do that detail monitoring. Because I think as we've heard in other presentations, whether from the Clifton folks or even Dr. Millie Schaefer, the aerial infrared is a snapshot in time and its accuracy is not as great as actual like boots on the ground monitoring of like actual impacts. So we haven't gotten to that level of detail with forest analysis with regards to the deer population yet. But that's a goal that we're hoping to achieve here in the next 5 or so years. And then into trail work. So Matt and Clayton, our GIS folks, built us a really awesome work order system, which allows us, because our areas that we manage don't have an address, unlike street trees, you know. So having GPS points about to note exactly where issues are has been essential. And so our team has really been working with Matt and Clayton to really kind of hone in and build out this work order management system using the tools that we already have at hand. And so over the past few years, we've had about 1,200 work orders, and you can kind of see where the majority of our work has been focused. 75% of our work orders are down trees and vegetation that's creeping in. So every year it's trying to push back miles of corridor that are encroaching, or clearing down trees in partnership with our tree crews. And then about 14% of our work is, you know, kind of drainage, tread repairs, reroutes for some of the more gnarly areas. And then 7% has been structural repairs. And a lot of that is being done in partnership with our facility maintenance team. So one of our goals every year under John's leadership is that every mile of trail is inspected and we're giving it a condition assessment so that we can start to prioritize our work a little better around the trail system. And this year we added the Alt Park Discovery Trail, which was about 700 feet of trail, which you guys had a presentation on, I think, about a week ago. And if you go to the next slide, it kind of shows the before and after of that. So this is kind of what a new trail like development looks like. Our team did a really great job analyzing this corridor and, you know, minimizing impact to high quality ephemerals. And so just really proud of Cam. And
That's Cam in the photo there.
yeah. I don't know what he's looking at. Probably a turtle. It's a baby turtle. And then coming up over the next year, really starting to put the fire under our butts to get this contractual funding out. So we have a good chunk of funding for Mount Airy and the Trail Connection Project, which, Molly, I think whenever you first started, we were talking about this. So really stoked to get that out. We have Alt Park funding from the state that we have to get out the door and spent by the end of the year. And then shortly behind that, as we start to get into French Park and the funding that we will be receiving from that. And then McAvoy is close behind with capital funding that's already been allocated. So we've been learning a lot about how to contract out these type of projects. I kept getting hit with roadblocks with, you know, architects instead of trail builders. So really trying to figure out the best way to word some of these things to get it through the city bureaucracy and have the best contractors possible. And these are just some random photos of other things we do. We've been doing some of the lake testing out at Burnett Woods. We've really been trying to focus on getting kiosks installed and maps put on them so that there's kind of a touch point, and just kind of working on signage across the system for trails. And then one of my favorite photos here is the green teams. We had a very small green team this year through groundwork at Heart River Valley. It was focused at Mount Echo. So only about 10 youth, largely due to funding constraints and changes in federal funding for that organization. But they did an amazing job, really cleared a lot of invasives and did some trail work out there that really kind of opened that corridor up. And that's my long-winded spiel.
Have you celebrated a year yet?
I'm 11 months in, so.
11 months in. So in 11 months, John's really taken the reins under Crystal's direction and adding 2 natural resource specialists. It's really allowed us to, you can see what we were doing before, but now I feel like 11 months in, we're really poised to get ready to run. It's pretty exciting stuff.
I throw one question, because it's a very comprehensive and fascinating update. Thank you. There is 620 acres or so that aren't under the aren't in your work at CLM. Those would be, I assume, the more urban parks, the more, I'll say, activation focused parks, or what makes something not be under CLM? Because that's.
So typically it's gonna be your manicured areas, like the, I guess, business in the front, party in the back. Like the mowed lawns, the event spaces, you know, it's good to see that 80+% of our entire park board maintenance area is forested or naturalized in some way. So it's all those other areas that are more under the direction of operations. And then there are some, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just as you look out back, you've got kind of trees next to my office. Those are operations. The flower beds around the building are operations. We just did a big volunteer project that I showed you some pictures of at the last board meeting out back. But then as soon as you get to that hillside and that brush and up into the forest, that's where it switches from operations into the realm of CLM. And just as you pull into park here, you can see on that hillside, there's been some honeysuckle removed right immediately there, but it doesn't, you don't have to get very far up the hill to see where the honeysuckle is and the opportunity we have just here in Eden Park to make a real difference.
Yeah. And then we get pulled into various other projects, you know, if there's geese in the lake up here that are causing a problem or now we get pulled into that. Overlook clearance and trying to naturalize those areas away from clear cut. It's great.
In layperson's terms, forests would be under CLM, not forests would not. And there's lots of nuance to that, I'm sure, but generally speaking, that would be a safe guideline.
Yes, sir. And then I would say like meadowlands. So we have about 13 acres of meadowland prairie out in French Park alone. So those kind of areas were historically installed and are now kind of we're working to get them back and into working order, if you would.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right.
Anything else?
You're just doing an incredible job. I just think it's
Sue?
the best part of it, it's measurable. I mean, you
That's
know
right.
where you stand, you know, and which really helps everybody that works with you and for you. If everybody needs to have a way of knowing if they're doing a good job or if it's what they're accomplishing. So it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, our pleasure. And honestly, it's largely my team members, the leaders that I serve alongside that are really, and then, you know, Matt DeBona and that team that are really kind of building the tools to help us track things.
Yeah.
We give them all the things, all the random things that we might want to track, and they build it out and put it in.
Measurable. It's wonderful.
And you have a great volunteer system too.
Yes.
That makes a huge difference. And the volunteers are very enthusiastic and they're very loyal, they're hardworking, and they just have a great impact on how you get things done.
Absolutely. And that's a lot thanks to Crystal Johnson and her leadership working alongside me since pretty much I started. So.
And the foundation as well.
Oh, absolutely.
The foundation should be given credit for the support they provided.
Absolutely. Yeah. All of the volunteers under the CCS program are insured by the foundation. That was a requirement by law in order for us to apply herbicide. So they maintain insurance for 250 volunteers annually. So, and as we continue to build the program, we're thinking about a Sawyer program and maybe foliar spray. So we'll keep working on that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll echo that with the volunteers. You know, many hands make light work and it is a lot of work. And you know, I think about the Buttercup Valley and even Parker Woods. Those Northside volunteers have been at it for over 30 years. And if you walk that Buttercup Valley Preserve in the spring, it's exotic.
Yeah.
I mean, the wildflowers there, the variety of them in abundance, it's exotic. It feels like you're in another place. And the reality is we don't even recognize what natural Ohio is because our forests have been in such poor condition, but some of them have recovered and you're recovering more. So it's really exciting.
It's an honor.
Great work.
Good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You.
Well, congratulations on your upcoming anniversary.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right, great. Travis, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here with only one action item for your consideration today. Some other updates we'll go through, but one action item, which we'll start with. I think you've got a map to help explain, help illustrate what we're doing. This is Miles Edwards Park, which is essentially wooded area with a large valley at the bottom that's cut off decades ago by the street that you see in the north end, the top of this map. Underneath the tree, it's a MSD combined storm line. Historically, there were windows, openings in that line that would allow the water to come out of this basin. Because of concerns with sewer backup and changes that MSD making over the last decade plus, they've closed those windows to isolate the sewer from storm. Fortunately, in this situation, there's no outlet for storm. So what happens during a storm event is water collects in this basin and then slowly absorbs into the ground. As you can imagine, in the last few years, particularly this year, with the heavy stormwater events, that's a concern of ours, and certainly of the homeowners across the street. If this area were to crest, it's going into the basements, it's going into the homes across the street. So we've been monitoring this and have a solution. We've worked closely with MSD on that solution. They've actually designed the solution for us. So it would include essentially a standpipe, a stormwater structure, where you've at the top end of this map where you see the bullseye graphic. Part of this design will be a valve that will prevent a backflow preventer that will prevent the sewage from ever coming into this, but will allow the storm water to flow out. Now, during a heavy stormwater event, when that line is full, water will still back up, and the structure is designed that we're proposing to construct, asking for your approval of, will force the water to back up like a detention basin, but it will drain. And in addition to that structure allowing it to drain, the dotted line, we'll be putting about 100 feet of perforated tile underground that will allow this basin to completely drain. And since MSD has closed the windows, this basin is very seldom completely drained. So it's become a mosquito issue, and just not a good habitat. So the proposal that we've received from our stormwater contractor, it's $110,600 to construct the outflow device, the valve, and the underground perforated tile system. So I'm asking your approval to expend those funds with an additional 10%, $11,000 in contingency should we need that. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, is there a motion to approve? It is $110,600. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
It is.
What's kidding?
And to the neighbors across the street, it's very,
Why you're the guy for the job.
it's exciting.
You heard from the neighbors a couple times. They presented their concerns to the group, and I think
It's great.
it's lovely to be responsive in relatively short order. That's good. And it's also timely with, I know this was in work separately before, but some of the events of the past, 6 weeks that the city's had and these anomalous, no longer anomalous, heavy rainfalls. I mean, this is the guts of it. This is a detention basin on top of an MSD sewer is kind of and so this is responsive to a clear and present challenge being faced in several neighborhoods, and it's nice to see it. I recognize it might not be like the headline of excitement.
I got it.
But it is, I like to see parks pulling on one of those oars for the stormwater management that is a growing challenge throughout the region.
It's-
Thank you for that.
It's been cooperative with MSD. They've been at the table, so we're learning a lot. And with each solution, we can test new things, new ideas, get more creative on how we're managing stormwater, which is an absolute necessity. So this is a good project. In terms of updates, I'll quickly run the list. Couple of things I want to highlight. But at the top of the list is Sinton. We are proceeding quickly on the bid package materials and expect those to be posted next month. Owl's Nest Park, KZF is right on track with their work. We have a contractor in Pavilion today doing a survey of hazardous materials. We do suspect there's some asbestos just based on the age of the building and some of the materials. So we'll identify where those are and make sure that we're treating those appropriately through the construction. So that's underway and on track. We'll expect mid-September to have the 50% plan delivery from KZF. So marching forward there. Glenway Park had an excellent meeting earlier this last week, gosh, time flies. Last week with the community, giving them an update, which includes going to bid for the entrance. So that should be posted. I've got September, but expecting that to happen this week, possibly today, getting some final details to our procurement team to get that posted, but the materials are ready to go. But more excitingly on Glenway, we're talking about the playground and got input from the community on the features of the playground, even the colors. So moving that forward, expect to be under contract in the next month to two, and looking forward to construction with luck and with weather on our side by the end of the calendar year with some playground improvements at that park. So Smale, this is Smale Lot 23. We are wrapping up. We're beginning the closeout process of this project, and probably no surprise as we're doing that, the funds are drying up as they should. You know, we're spending those funds, but we are getting into contingency. So when you approved the funding for this, there was 101,000 and some change that was approved to be held as off contract contingency. We are eating into that. So 17,500 is the first use of that to extend THP's contract, helping us with contract administration, project administration. There's been delays in the project, so the calendar is extended on their fronts. Essentially, the 17,500 keeps them on the payroll as we close out the project. We're expecting additional contingency use, some materials that will need to be invested in and repaired, you know, as we close out the project. So going forward, the next couple of months, the next few months, I'll be reporting to you as we're spending that down, just so it's clear to you where those funds are, how those funds are being used. I'll pause there and take a break if there's any questions so far. Okay. McAvoy, we have a community meeting September 9th. So getting the process started for the design. We've had some internal meetings and walks and site visits with stakeholders, but we'll be assembling September 9th for the first time community to be able to react to some of the preliminary ideas and concepts and their input for the improvement plans for McAvoy. Eden Park Steps, corner of Peregrine and Loudon at the base of the Playhouse, that is under construction. So if you drive through Mount Adams, you'll see the construction work underway for those steps. So that is on track as well. I jumped over a few things. So if there's any other questions or questions on the schedule, happy to answer those while I'm here. That is my report.
We're moving on just so many projects. I just complimented all the work that we've got done with John Aguilar Dwyer since he came on board 11 months ago. Travis is just finishing up month 8. And so things are moving up at all levels, and lots of stuff getting out, and lots of money is going to get spent over the next year, which is really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's what we need to do. Great, thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Right, Jason, you've got the finance update,
All right.
absence.
So I'll run through Heather's report here, and then I would like to go through the finance report at the end of the presentation because we've closed out the books on the full FY 26. So first up, the Cincinnati financial system just reopened not too long ago, and so our team's been busy entering all of the purchase requests or encumbrances that have built up over the last 6 weeks as we've been waiting for that to open back up. And so they've done a really good job to open that up quickly and keep things moving. That's always one of the challenges with our busy season coincides with the city's system shutting down for year end. lots of big picture projects. We're continuing to work to consolidate our three funds. As we've talked about a couple times, we're refining our budgets and expenses. We're about to go through closing out of 26, and I've talked a lot about how much more in-depth we were able to get in aligning our books and our resources in this budget submission, but we're setting up some new reports that we'll have to track that throughout the year. So on a monthly basis, we'll be tracking at a much more granular level, which is exciting. We've enhanced the tracking of our payroll for our seasonals and our overtime spend, another huge development last year that we're really excited to implement for a full fiscal year. And then we've worked with city budget to kind of enhance some of the different things with our financial structure in place for our bureaus and like-kind agencies. Regular collaboration with operations and considered to continued support of all work that Travis is doing for getting all this capital stuff out. Our IT team is doing a great job. The city of Cincinnati is making a real push to get all city facilities to have city wireless or COC wireless. Too many parks facilities do not. And so Matt and Dom with the IT team have been working to get all of those aligned with them. And then there's this quote at the end. It's about 30,000 per site to get the city of Cincinnati Wi-Fi. And so we'll be looking at identifying the resources we can and coming up with a plan to fund that in responsible pace. They've also worked with Travis on the Central Avenue building that used to house our electricians and is about to house our mechanics. Put it a little bit back for Megan Construction to develop the construction drawings for that. But they've been working on what IT needs there are, including cameras for the building. If we're going to store all of our equipment down there that's getting taken care of by our mechanics, we're going to need some good camera coverage. And so they've come up with a solution for that. And then lastly, we've been fortunate that we've never had any casting problems for our board meetings, but that takes a lot of stress and coordination with the IT team and Kate. And so what we did was they went out and they fixed it. And so now we have a much more reliable casting solution for our board meetings and for our meetings when we host lots of meetings here when we're not doing this big meeting. So with that, I will encourage you to move to page 16 of your packet. All right. And so you'll see at the bottom, big picture, we budgeted about 29.6 million and we spent about 28.3 million. Of that, there's an additional 300,000 that is encumbered and is being spent since the year closed on July 31st. That will still come out of last year's books. So all told, we were about $1 million under in spend to budget, which is great. Better to be under than over. Especially interesting this year because what we did in October of last year was we moved a lot of the funding that was in the endowment fund 430 and we moved it into some of these other funds. And through that process, we realized that, as we've discussed, that some of the funding from in Fund 430 wasn't as directly tied to resources in as it was to budgets. And so we expected there to be some underspend just because of that. In that move, we eliminated some of those budgets, or at least we're targeting not spending all of it because there wasn't the resources to fill those buckets back up. So as you'll note, one of the things we've done is we've realigned this by spend. So instead of having everything kind of jumbled by alphabetical order, we're instead doing it by spend category. And so you can see that we were almost exactly where I want to be with payroll and benefits, which is 98%. Obviously, you don't want to go over it all. And so to be that close was a real good job by the team to coordinate at the end of the year. We were much further under in expert services. This is, again, something that we kind of expected. This was one of the things we were trying to thin out as we've added to the team and as we've brought more people online. The goal is to rely on more things in-house and less through expert services. Now, expert services just isn't like architects and engineers, but it's also much more likely to be contracted services, whether that's for urban street trees and preventative maintenance, or whether that's for other horticultural services to help run our parks. But that's definitely an area where we're targeting kind of some reductions. Materials and supplies, again, our fourth highest category, again, pretty much dead on at 98%. And then as you go down through the run of things, we've got some things that are higher and lower. But overall, 96% spend is pretty good. We're hoping to get that a little closer to 100% in the future, but we will always expect there to be a little bit of an underage. between two things. One, encumbrances that we encumbered and the money is spent, but not yet spent, because they haven't sent us the invoice, which is just a closeout issue. The next page I included here is last year's closeout to see that. Now, this isn't ordered, but this is just the exact sheet that we looked at this time last year to see where we were at. And as you can see, last year, we were slightly over in salaries, slightly over in benefits, so I'm really excited that we brought that under this year. Also, just an interesting thing that I think we cleaned up in our submission of the budget this year, but as a perfect example of that, is if you look at bank fees on the 2 pages, 16 and 17, bank fees were budgeted at 72,000 last year and 77,000 this year, but yet the spend is almost identical at 96,000 this year and 97,000 last year. But because of the way the budget works, the budgets just kind of roll over, but we've taken this new step of aligning that. And so the hope is if we didn't catch it in February, we're going to catch it in next February as we submit the budget, and we're going to start to better align all those things at a more granular level, which is just, it's taken a while to get to that, but I'm really excited to kind of be able to take that next step as far as aligning our budgets and making sure they're matching actual spend.
Is there a labeling change there? Bank fees and 25?
I apologize.
Credit card fees?
Correct. Yep. So that's another thing that we've done is some of these categories were historic categories that were just always, and they didn't necessarily reflect the city's coding. And so we've switched to using all of the city's coding now as well. So an excellent catch of, again, how our system's evolving under Hedda's leadership.
So one more question.
Of course. No.
Insurance. I'm assuming that's an allocation from a city type package. We're not privately contracting to insure this element or that element, or are we? That's the kind of question I would have hated your insurer because it's very granular. So I'm happy to take it with head offline of that.
Yeah, no, I can definitely get you more detail on that. What I would say is we do have a couple of things insured. Jenny's nodding her head.
What is the railroad area by Friendship?
Yep.
And I can't think of the other one.
For instance, I believe all of the riverfront parks are insured. And so when the fire happened for the playground, we did receive 125,000 in insurance for that playground, which was the cap of what we were available to get, but it was insurance from that arson.
It's a few specific elements that are insured for some historical legacy reasons, because it wasn't a big enough number to be the entire system, but it's not a,
yeah,
so.
In large parts, the city's self-insured, but there are a couple of items that I think are higher risk that we do additionally insure in order to protect the city a little bit. But I can definitely get you more detail on that.
I'm still blown away that we spent $1 million in taxes.
So that is again a coding issue. Most of that is we are given the budget and then pass the budget through for the city's portion of the urban forestry assessment. So since the city owns so much land, we're one of overall, the urban forestry assessment brings in 3.6 million. $1 million of that is front footage that the city owns or that's public. And so at the beginning of the year, we're given $1 million and then we move that $1 million into the urban forestry assessment. And so that's coded into that.
I'm no less blown away.
But yeah, it's 90% of it. Yeah. All right. So if we switch over to funds by expense type, I have notes on one page and the data on the other. So that's page 18. The top 4 are our funds that we get directly from the city, that if we don't spend those, they go away. And so you'll see that almost all of those were spent to 100%. And that'll get even closer, as I said, as some of those encumbrances close out, because those do stay on the books and come out of that. And then you'll see that we are under in several of our other our parks held expenses. This again is a positive because many of those expenses saw budget change as we realigned the endowment budget 430. And so a lot of that was, those are the ones that if we don't spend it, we retain it as fund balance that we can use for the budget this year. Any questions? And then moving forward, page 19 is revenue for the year. You can see that we budgeted $4,882,000 for our budget revenue. But we actually brought in almost 7.8 million. This is again part of that shift of coding all of our revenue that's not from endowments into the proper accounts. But it also shows, for the first time, Hedda and Kirby on her team were able to dig into our historic revenue and then align that with now what our budgeted revenue is. So oftentimes before, the finance department downtown, the budget department downtown would just carry forward previous revenue estimates, and that would be the budgeted revenue. And what really mattered was what happened to the fund balance at the end of the year, right? But now we have completely aligned both our projected revenue with what our historic revenue is. And those are, next year that will much more align. So if throughout the year it's been confusing that our revenue's ahead of schedule, but why? Next year, the budgeted revenue and the incoming revenue will be much closer aligned. So if we'll be able to more closely judge if we're doing well or poorly compared to what we expect.
Do you have a budget for the revenue type?
I do. For 27, we can totally.
Yeah, you've got the actuals there. My curiosity is just.
Yep.
The funds really don't tell where the differences were, but the revenue type does.
We can totally get you that. And then we can also get you FY 26's budgeted revenue, which will be much closer to actual. What the actual, so when we get you the next year's budget will look very similar to FY 26's revenue for our budget, but then obviously the FY 26 budget will be much off of what our actual was. And then as you can see on the next page, page 20, these are our park board. These are the fund balances. So as you can see, all of these are quite healthy. When we passed the budget in March, for the first time, we had what is the fund balance expected impact on the budget we had. And a couple of those budgets were over revenue. And the point of that, though, is that this is to help spin down some of these balances that all told, you can see it's about $16 million that we have in fund that has been built up over the years. Obviously, we always want to maintain fund balance in our funds, but we want to get that much closer to matching revenue and operational expenses out. And then on page, what would be 21, but it doesn't have a page number for some reason, the graphic must have covered it. You can see it hiding in there in the fund balance, but you can see that we've had a really good year in our investment in our endowments. Starting out, the June 25 balance was 25 million, and we ended with 29 million. And so what we're going to see that impact is in the amount that we can distribute out, which another improvement we've aligned. So that distribution now aligns with preparing the budget. So the funding is already available in all of the budgets for the team out in the field, which in the past, they would have to wait several months because we would pass the commissioner's fund budget in August, and then we'd have to have an ordinance and move the money over. And so those funds weren't available until fall. Now the funds were available as soon as the funds opened back up in early August, all those funds were available. So a huge improvement. But what we're also going to see is with this growth from 25 million to 29 million, is that 20 trailing quarters that we average the 5% distribution on is going to go up. And I think we've aged out, was it 22 that was the really bad year? Might have aged out now, but we're getting closer to
One more year.
yeah. So we're getting closer to seeing that go up as well. There's just going to be more resources available for our operations. So it's just great news.
Great.
But
We need to send it.
we absolutely need to spend it. All right.
All right, you've got an HR update for us?
I do. And now I just find where I put all my pages, get back to organized here. So that was,
Capital transfer.
oh, yes, we do have the capital transfer.
Yes, go ahead on that.
So last month we saw the presentation on Centon and the plan to move forward with that. As Travis updated, we are getting that out to bid. And we've gotten we've gotten a couple of estimates of what that cost was. We've estimated on the high side, including we're hoping to be able to do the solar panel project as well. over the last several years, we have been saving up money in our INR dollars for the Sinton project, as well as getting some Cincy on track money in 2025 for it. We estimate that we're pretty close to having the amount we're going to need to do it. But in order to make sure we have those resources ready, in order to make sure the resources are ready so there's no delay, once we get the bids back, we're requesting to transfer $1 million from the Riverfront Stabilization Fund, and we're requesting to transfer that into the Sinton Fund. The Riverfront Stabilization Fund were dollars. When I started in September of 22, the city was looking for capital projects that were of the most urgent need. They had some Recovery Act dollars. At the time, Joel had only been on for a couple of months, and he had identified the riverfront erosion that we're seeing down at Smale as being one of the highest priority issues. And he was fearful that we might have to have an interim solution to put some large riprap stone there. We've been monitoring that over the last 4 years. And while we are continuing to see some erosion, we aren't seeing quite as badly as we thought. We've also made tremendous progress with the Army Corps of Engineers towards the ultimate end goal of adding 3 acres of park to that riverbank. And so we think that we're safe to move this money over. That's not to say we won't need an interim solution if we're unsuccessful at getting the federal dollars for the riverfront project, but that project's not ready to go. And Sinton, for many years, hard to get it there, is going to be ready to go in October or November. And we want to make sure we have the resources available so that we can move forward with that as quickly and efficiently as possible. As Madam President just said, spend this money. And so this will get us to the largest project that Parks has undertaken in quite some time.
I have a couple questions on this. We have approved dollars for Sinton and or biochar over years.
Mhm.
Do we have anything in this that illustrates what that is?
Not in this packet, but I can show you the accounting of that.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think before we go approve $1 million from one fund to another, I'd like to have the view of what we have already
Mhm.
set aside for the Sinton and biochar project, what your estimate is to complete it. When will we get when will we get bids back on this project?
We will get bids back. We're hoping to get it out in September. It'll be out for 3 or 4 weeks, 4 weeks, I would guess.
Yeah, I would expect that November.
Okay, so can we defer this until the next meeting? Yeah.
We certainly could. We need to pass an ordinance, and then that ordinance, we just heard from the finance, the budget department, the city doesn't want to do that as an emergency ordinance, so it needs to be passed and then have 30 days before it takes effect. If we could have a short recess, I could provide you with that accounting in 10 minutes, if you would like to look at it, and we could discuss.
I don't think we've got time for a short recess.
Okay.
A couple of people have to move on. I don't like these sort of blind approvals where we're, when we don't have any information other than the request to move $1 million. And further on the riverfront park stabilization, I'd just like more information about how that money got into that account, why we would reserve it. And you're saying we may need it later, but how are we going to get the money for it later if we need it?
So that's part of what's shifted in how the city does capital projects is that the city, it used to be the city would say, what you need, you get it, and you put it into these buckets. And quite frankly, I wasn't super experienced in it when we first started. And this was October of 22. And so we got it in case we needed it, and then we set it aside. The city's moving with the new processes that are putting in place with the Cincy on Track funding to have kind of rolling 6-year outlooks. So one of the things, we've just completed the first 2 years of Cincy on Track. And then one of the things that we're going to be doing over the next several months is updating that 6-year plan to forecast out what the needs will be for the next 6 years, which we'll look at first year 3 through 6 of the previous plan, but then be updated. And so if this were to be something that we would need, instead of having it squirreled away and being ready to go, we would instead add it to our request for the following year as a prioritization so that the money comes in and then we're ready to spend it, rather than kind of getting it and holding it in case we need it. And so, which is why, unfortunately, we have way too many dollars that are unspent that are in our capital accounts, and we're trying to shift to getting those dollars out the door much quicker. And so if we do not have an urgent need for this project right now, and it's not one that we're working on because we're working with the Army Corps towards the kind of final plan to improve that area. if something were to change dramatically over the next several years, we would have the time to start working on that plan, develop the plan, add the money, request to our request for future funds, and then the plan would be ready so that when that came in, we'd be ready to spend it. It's a little bit like, I mean, there are several great examples, but Owl's Nest, we got the 2 million last year. We've been working the construction drawings, but we're not ready to actually build it until next spring. And so we're going to try to align. And then on the other side, McAvoy Park, the dollars just became available in August for 1.5 million. We're already moving with the plan to be able to spend those dollars, hopefully also by next spring, because we've been working on the plan starting when Travis started last like February or March. And so we're more aligning those to be what those requests will actually be. While I don't have a document to give you, I can walk through from memory the money that we've set aside for Senton, and I think I will get very close to what we actually have. In 2024, the board approved as part of our INR budget. At that point, we got 2.6 million. We set aside 900,000 for Senton at that time. Then the following year, in 2025, we set aside 1.25 million for Senton. And then we requested 1.7 million for Senton that's in a capital account. So those are the 3 times that we have voted to put money towards Senton. And so that's a total of 3.8 million that's been directly voted on by the board for Senton. In addition, we have 484,000 in the biochar account, taking us to a total of $4.4 million that we voted to put towards Senton and biochar. So that's the money that you all have voted on for that. And then I'm requesting that we vote to move this $1 million from a previous account to this one. There hasn't been a vote taken for the remaining dollars that we've set aside for Senton, but those are in unspent INR dollars, infrastructure and rehabilitation dollars over the years, because we've seen this project's been coming down the pipe for over a year as we've been developing the project and keeping the plans. And we've known it was going to be, first we thought it was going to be 6 to 7 million. Now it's in that $7 to $8 million range. And so I've been intentionally saving those dollars up so that we're ready to tackle this project when it gets there. We currently have $7.2 million between the 4.4 that you voted on and additional dollars that we've saved up to put towards it. This additional $1 million would get us to about 8.2, 8.3, which we think is more than enough to accomplish the project. Any dollars that isn't needed for the project, so if it comes in at 7.7, any remaining dollars would still be those infrastructure and rehabilitation dollars, which would be free for us to do other priorities such as the Miles Edwards standpipe or other things. And so I'm happy to put all of that into report form, and I'm happy to, I mean, again, if you would prefer to wait, we definitely can wait. But this is an effort to try to more broadly get ahead of these things so that we are operating, that we're moving the dollars now so that when the bids come back in October, November, the dollars are there and ready to go. But I want to provide as much information and background as possible.
We don't have a list of the capital accounts here, do we?
So these were slide that, yep. Up and up. Yep. So this was prepared for last month's presentation. And it shows kind of how we've set aside those sources. I don't believe Rocky left me with one, but thanks. I'll show it. All right. So this doesn't show the votes, but it does show the fund balances. So 222,000 is our infrastructure rehabilitation from 22. That has 400. The biochar replication facility fund has 484, as I mentioned a second ago. 232,000 doesn't have much left. We've been spending out of that, but it does have a little bit left that we can use for this. And then 242 and 252 are where I've been saving up over the last couple of years. 242 is where we had voted to put 900,000 back We obviously saved more than that. And then 252 is where we had 1.25 million that was voted for. And then there's the 1.7 million, that's the Sinton facility. And then lastly is 262,000, which has 237. And that comes from two amounts. One is reimbursements that we did not do to payroll this year. We were able to, because our spend on payroll was a little less, we did not take all of the money out of the capital that we'd set aside for payroll. Yeah, and these are the project costs, the estimated project costs. Oh, there's more coming, sorry.
I'm thinking we have.
Cool. Sorry. These are the cost estimates on this page. There we go.
Okay. These are big ones on it down.
And then so to go back to the available project funding, like I said, that's about 7.5. And then as I laid out kind of possible fund uses, 232,027 is the one we're suggesting moving over right now after consulting with the budget office and discussing internally with Travis the need for that project, again, isn't in a go state or isn't a project that we think we're going to have to fund. If something were to dramatically change again, I feel confident that we'd be able to work with the city budget office to add that to our 6-year planning process as one of our requests to be considered by city council and the city administration.
This is an estimate. We won't know more until we get the bids in, which again, tell me what the date expected is.
We expect to get those back early October, it sounds like, from the timeline, maybe mid-October.
Yeah, we're like mid to late October.
Mid to late October.
November meeting, we should have.
So again, there's absolutely no problem with holding off and wait and voting later.
But the second part of this question is, we don't keep in this package the list of the fund balances for everything else.
Mhm.
So then my question is, and you've answered this in part, but how did we get the Riverfront Park stabilization dollars, and are there restrictions on that?
So we got the reverse table.
Who approved that in the first place? How'd that money get there in the first place, and who approved it? Do we even have the flexibility to move this around?
So city council was the one that appropriated to us in October of 2022. And it's in an account that is for that purpose. And so what we're requesting first is that the park board approve moving it from that account for that purpose to the Sinton account for the purpose of rebuilding the Sinton facility and biochar. And then once you approve that, then we would work with the law department to develop an ordinance that would go before city council for them to make the official move.
So that would handle, so the authorization would be covered by that future ordinance.
Correct.
To do
That would be what moves it from one account to the other.
So absent an ordinance, we can't move it without that subsequent legislative
Yep.
approval.
And then to get even more granular about restrictions or not, so when it says after the hyphen, it says GFCO. The first two letters are general fund. I think it's general fund capital ordinance maybe, but I'm guessing about the CO, that means that council has broad leeway to move it around. So there are various ways that they fund I just saw a presentation on this. The overall capital budget for the city is about 145 million. Of that, 58 million is railroad funds, Cincy on Track, or COT. And then some of it is general fund, some of it is bond funding. There's like a bunch of different things that go into making up all of that. Generally, we used to get bond funded or proceeds from the railroad lease would back our bonds. But now we get them in various stages. So our total capital this year, we got about 6 million. 3 million of that came, 2.5 million of that came as Cincy on Track, and the rest came as bond back funding this year, where last year our entire 7 million that we got came as Cincy on Track dollars.
I would imagine general fund capital dollars are the most flexible of the capital dollars.
They're most flexible, but they're also the most sought after, which is why it's important to get those spent. And,
We've had it.
no
for 4
qualms
years.
about saying we've had some spending problems, but as I highlighted in the second during Travis's presentation, we are getting things out the door. And so whether it's Glenway, whether it's the RFP for the master planners and architects for Inwood, whether it's California Woods, where we're gonna get 100% documents back this fall and have that out to bid for next year. As I've mentioned to you individually, I've set the North Star for the big five this year. And the big five are projects that we are committed to getting out the door under contract by next summer. And that is Sinton Biochar, which we hope to get out this fall. That is Glenway Park, that, as Travis said, could be out to bid even as we speak, but if not, sometime in the next few days. That is the Sawyer Point Playground renovation. That is California Woods. And lastly, Owl's Nest. It was funny, I was reflecting on this last night, if you'll allow me to go on a little bit, but it's pretty funny to think about our values as park board and what those 5 projects are. We've got Sinton Biochar, which is investing in our employees, investing in our operations to take a 60-year-old garage where folks took their breaks next to the exhaust from the lawnmower and renovate that into a world-class operations facility. So investing in our people. Biochar is part of that, investing in one-of-a-kind kind of leading-edge technology to plant trees and to care about the stuff that Crystal presented on. So that's one project. 2, got Glenway Park, East Price Hill, an area that gets almost no investment. It was the #1 needle collection site when I started at Parks before we took out all the invasive species. Thank you very much. We're going to invest in this community that very rarely sees the kind of investment that they deserve. 3, the playground at Sawyer Point, showing our resiliency. Somebody burns our playground up, we're going to bring it back bigger and better. We've made the goal to make that the coolest playground in the region. And again, what are our values? Doing it first class and being resilient. 4, California Woods, one of our most pristine forested areas. This is an area that is our old growth forest as part of a national network. It's absolutely beautiful, but has some erosion problems from a lot of different reasons. We're going to invest in that and bring that back to being a world-class stream, and we're going to preserve it for the next 50 years with this project. And then lastly, Owl's Nest, a project where 6 years ago, the building was almost knocked down, right? This is the historic pool house where Marion Spencer helped desegregate Cincinnati recreation center pools. It combines East Walnut Hills with Evanston, 2 communities that kind of illustrate the unfortunate segregation that Cincinnati has. And we're going to invest about $4 million in that park, the partnership with the foundation to bring that back. So for me, I don't know, I was just reflecting last night on as I finish my 4th year, that it's pretty fun that those big 5 projects really represent a cross section of the values that are oh so important to us. So anyways, which is a long way of saying I am very excited that we're going to get this money being spent over the next year.
It's critical. It's critical. I mean, I'm so glad that you're here, Travis, because we really do need to turn up spending this money.
Absolutely.
We're getting a stockpile of it, frankly, and we've got to get some more money out the door. I think we've got to pay for this project. We don't know how much it will cost, so I'm hesitant about moving dollars around and modifying original intent of spending money by us or by city council. So my ask would be, is this something that we can hold until we get the initial bids back? Or is this something that you insist we must do now to keep this project on track? In which case I will support it. But again, I'm hesitant without us going back to really talk through how we're thinking about the riverfront. This has also been a priority for a very long time. And we're going to be in a position where we're cobbling together dollars to fund that very important improvement. And I understand you've got to find the money from somewhere, but you don't know how much you need yet.
Yep. So what I would say is that it is my preference that I would request that we move forward with this, but at the deference of whatever you all are comfortable with. What I would say is that we do not have to vote on this today, but if we want to be able to accept those bids and move forward with getting into contract as quickly as possible, voting on this today will ensure that we have the dollars set aside to be ready to enter into contract without delay. If we wait a month, we might also be okay, or we might add in some delay that is the administrative part of getting the ordinance written, having the ordinance go to committee, having the ordinance passed, waiting 30 days for it to take effect as a regular ordinance, and then the other administrative folks moving money around. And so that would be my recommendation, which would be to move this today. To the concern about having multiple priorities, I think that you are absolutely correct. We have multiple priorities. And when I started, what we had was multiple priorities and all of them in a partial state of ready to go. Right? Which was the first time we had the 3-year plan, was an attempt to, from just a logical standpoint, organize that into something that was easy to understand and understand that we didn't have, you can't work equally on all things or you're never getting anything done, to start to prioritize that. But what we have not yet aligned, and I think we are aligning as we move into these new Cincinnati on track dollars and this new 6-year plan. But as you can see from we had a little bit of money in a million priorities, and none of it was enough to do what that priority needed. And it's exemplified by this Senton project where we've been saving for years, and we've got this list of ways we can pay for it rather than unaccount with all the money in it. And so, yes, a great example on here is the MLK Park, which we have 600,000 for. That came at that exact same time. I was a month in, they were like, hey, we're passing out money. What do you want to do? We had a list of parks we wanted to get to, and I was like, ooh, let's do MLK. But now we've got 600,000 that's sitting in a project that we're going to start engaging the community on at the start of next year. We've got it in the 6-year plan to get another 750,000 for it next year. And so we're going to start the community engagement so that by the time we get to June and that money becomes available, we're ready to spend it next year much more quickly within that first calendar year. But this 600,000 wasn't based on anything, it was based on availability. And so it's an example of, we've got these partially funded projects and we're moving to funding them all. And it is not the end of it, but I would argue, or I would present to you that the funding for Senton, this is the beginning of us cleaning up that and saying, we don't need $1 million for a project we might do in 2 or 3 years. If we need money in 2 or 3 years, we'll go get it then. What we need is money right now. And we're starting to clean that up so that within a year or so, our books are going to look much cleaner. And there will be much more of, there's always going to be projects that come in higher than we thought they were, and we're going to need additional funding. But it will be less of, this project's 30% funded, this one's 40% funded, this is a just in case for the future. And it will be more of, this is what we really thought it was going to be, the dollars are becoming available, and then we've been doing the setup work ahead of time, that when they become available, we're ready to spend them. That's a long process to get to that alignment, but we're working towards it.
I'm going to propose we defer it. And the basis is, for 5 years, we've been approving incremental dollars for this project. We still don't know how much it costs. I'm not comfortable moving money around, especially in this to move more money into a project that we don't know the cost of.
Okay.
So when it comes back and we've got indicative bids of what this costs, then we can address where we want to take those monies. And I think a review by the commissioners to talk about these potential additional sources is something that the commissioners deserve to have feedback on, so that we can talk about the priorities of these dollars. So I do appreciate the recommendation on where to bring it. I think it's, again, we've been approving these dollars for 5 years. So I'd like to push it.
That's totally fine.
We can certainly take a vote on it. If there's a motion to approve the proposal, we can vote on it.
I'm okay to wait for more information. I was wondering if it's possible, and with our friends from the law department in attendance, is it possible to begin that drafting? Or does it require the board? I'm just trying to think of trying to have funds available when we have all the information that's needed in the fund. Can it be drafted on the hope that at a future meeting it'd be passed? Does that create some speed there? I think I'm not articulating that well, but what I'm trying to say is, one of the reasons to vote today was to start the legislation drafting process. If we could provisionally start that, knowing that if it doesn't approve because the economics don't make sense or we're not comfortable with that, that might be a way to split the baby a little bit.
Easy ordinance.
Yeah,
My understanding is they're already working to draft the ordinance based upon previous conversations we had. The time is getting it introduced to council, getting it considered by committee, getting it approved by council, and then the 30 days for an ordinance.
They're trying to do less emergency ordinances.
Correct. Yep.
In the interest of transparency and process, understood.
So
it's not really the drafting, it's the getting on the vote calendar. Okay. I appreciate that distinction.
6 to 8 weeks
Okay.
months to get through the ordinance process.
We've been working on it for 6 years.
yeah, absolutely. Again, it's merely, I'm happy to dig as deep as anybody wants to go on it. So I'm more than happy to have additional meetings on it and talk about it. It's a fun project.
Let's see where the bids come in. And let's hope we have enough without moving any dollars around.
Maybe we do.
It's a possibility. Okay, what else do we have on the agenda?
All right. Next up is HR. Derek is here to join us. Exciting.
Oh, wow.
Very exciting.
Look who it is.
Yeah, I just got in.
Five civil service.
Look at that computer cover.
Hopefully people are nicer.
Very Parks-esque.
Yep. So, I don't have a lot for you except that we are waist deep in hiring. We have about 10 with the next labor that I'm going to be providing an offer letter with today that we're going to be onboarding and we'll be starting. 9 of them will be starting on the 30th, 31st. And the other person will start 2 weeks after that. We just are coordinating employee health screenings, background checks and all of that. But we're moving very fast. So I'm excited about that. So we have about 4 laborers, 2 horticulturists. We have a senior engineer that we're posting, a senior architect that is posted as of today. We also have, administrative specialist for planning and design, administrative technician at Crone Conservatory. So we're moving. Additionally, we're going into the winter, so we're planning for safety training and to make sure that we meet OSHA requirements. So that next season, the part-timers and full-timers that come in have the required trainings to make sure that we're safe. Our injury reporting is tracked by the city manager's office and we're compared to other departments. So I want to stay on the low end to make parks look good. So we're on that. Additionally, we are close to having our flyers that kind of culminates all information related to employee resources. That's tuition reimbursement, that's manager training, that's the safety training that we have to have per classification. It'll kind of be like an information piece that we can provide to you so you can see all the work that we're doing to, one, support our employees, but also keep them safe. And we have an upcoming all staff on November 5th. And that should be a lot of fun. The message for that is we have each other's back because we haven't had as many employees this season and we're going to really discuss and cover how we've supported each other with limited resources. So I'm excited about that. We have a really good tug of war competition that they get really excited about. So it's a lot going on. We're really busy in these positions. The next time we meet, we might be up to about at least close to being.
Questions for Derek? You do have a light report this month. You've been given the heavy stuff to Jason.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
There was civil service and a park commission meeting. It's a red letter, kind of a Thursday in your world.
Jason, we've got some grants.
Yep. So, a couple of grants for us this month. One is $6,198 for expenses related to the All Park fireworks. As you'll recall, a couple of years ago, All Park Advisory Council decided they were no longer going to be planning and organizing the fireworks, and so Parks took that on with the expectation that the foundation would work with the community to raise the dollars and then reimburse us for those as a self-produced event. So this is just the grant to take on that cost. The fireworks are much more expensive overall as a budget, but there's a lot of costs that the community gets the bids for, our team gets the bid for, and the foundation with these fundraised dollars pay for directly. So that's one. And then next up is Inwood Park improvements. And so if we'll flip to the next page on page 14, again, this is an example of how we're trying to get to that planning process and identifying the funds early in order to have the funds in place when we do it. Inwood Park has $1 million that we're going to use to bring the architect or designers under contract. As part of it, that won't be the whole cost. But then we've got, that was $1 million that was gotten in 2022 as well for a project that was, again, not ready to go. But we've got Inwood Park as one of the parks that will get dollars from us. I think it's in FY 29 of our plan. So next year we'll be designing it, and then the following year we'll be requesting dollars as part of the Cincinnati on Track. We estimate this project will be more like potentially a $10 million project, depending on what we decide to do with the pavilion and how much building restoration we want to do. So in order to be ready in 2 years, we're applying for this grant now. This is the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership, which is a nationally competitive program. The timeline, which I'll note in paragraph 3, is if it meets the state requirements, we'll find out. So we get our application in on September 1. If it meets the state requirements to go to the feds, we would know that by November 1. The feds would then award next May, and by award, I mean they will put us on a list of folks that get to apply. We'll then do the full application, and that deadline will be April 30th, 2028 to submit. And then the spending will be May 1st of 2028 to April 30th, which again aligns with that request. So that May 30th deadline to get the $5 million. And then in June, we have June, which would be the beginning of FY 29, was when we get the $6 million of Cincinnati on Track funding. So all of that lines up to make all of those dollars available for us when we're ready to start the project. And the expectation would be, again, we plan next year during calendar year 27. And so the beginning of fiscal calendar 28, we would be bidding that out so that, again, these dollars would align and we'd be able to bid it out for construction as soon as the dollars become available. Exciting stuff.
Apple pie approval. Everybody wants $5 million.
Yep.
So do we have a motion to approve the all park fireworks grant receipt, as well as apply for and receive the grant from ORLP?
All of the above.
Second,
All in
with
favor?
gratitude.
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
A very exciting opportunity. Sarah's doing a great job.
Indeed it is.
Thank you to the foundation and their generous donors for a successful fireworks event.
All right. Believe that brings us to director's comments.
I have one question before Commissioner Castellini leaves. We did not take official action on Owl's Nest. Do we need an official action, or is our indication of support sufficient for where they are in the project?
I think it's sufficient to take it to the next level. I put it on as an action item just to get kind of approval that we're going to move forward with the full plan and bringing them on as a partner. Obviously, as you identified in your questions, there's still kind of the full scope
Sure.
to get defined. But so that was why I was requesting approval. But
Great.
I feel comfortable to move forward with them without a vote.
We'll see that come back. Go Reds.
Thanks. We could use this win, everybody.
Yes, we can. Thank you. All right, Jason, your comments.
All right. Kate, bring up the slideshow here. We were very excited to have a special volunteer at the Butterfly Show. Mayor Aftab Piraval was in and worked the door for the Butterfly Show and actually got in and got to see the butterflies as well. Every year the Butterfly Shows is a labor-intensive project because of having to make sure that we monitor the doors in and the doors out. And so we've got a ton of volunteers for that. This was really fun. I put out a call to all city employees to see if anyone wants to volunteer, and we always get a really great response from city volunteers that want to give back. But he literally saw the email and decided that he wanted to proactively reach out to us and ask to volunteer, which was really great. It was a fun day on a Saturday. Next up is we have a partnership with ICRON. ICRON stands for Integration of Knowledge and Resources for Occupational Needs. It's a local nonprofit providing behavioral health, employment, youth, and support services to people with special needs. Our East District has partnered with some kids at Burnett Woods to remove graffiti, replace squirrel trash cans with holes in them with new cans that were painted with flowers by the kids. We've worked with them for many years, and it's just a great long-term partnership. See the kids out having fun. And you can see the garbage cans on the bottom and on the right are certainly much prettier than the garbage cans in the top left. Next up, it has been a couple of weeks, and Crystal and Garrett Diano and our urban forestry team have been out and hustling. Jacob Edwards, who's our crew leader there, It's just been a lot of storms, big flooding, high wind events. Last week, it's probably our biggest storm since Hurricane Ike, which was 2008, as I recall. The damage was incredible. We've had, within 24 hours, we'd had 324 community service requests. That's now up to 718 as of this morning, community requests, or 718 community service requests, or CSRs, just in the week and a half since that storm. We've closed most of those out, with another big batch to be closed today. We've been working with the Department of Public Services, who doesn't normally help with tree operations, but they've been helping us pick up some of the large debris, which allows our team to get to the site, get the tree cleared, and then leave it for Department of Public Services to come back and get. But this has just been an all hands on deck effort. First of all, to get to all of the sites and to triage them effectively. Some of them we're able to take care of. However, if they're touching utility lines or power lines, we send those to Duke. If they're touching cable lines, either Spectrum or Ultrafiber, we send those to those respective utilities. Then we've got emergency maintenance contractors that are going out to handle some of the stuff. Some of the stuff's handled by our in-house crews, and they've just been working 12, 16-hour days. It's just been a real hustle. I went in one morning to kind of watch the triage system as they were taking all those customer service requests, splitting them up by neighborhood, trying to organize it by street as best they can, and then just spend all day out doing as much as they can. They've really done an awesome job to get everything cleaned up and get things back into order as quickly as possible. And as you can see, they've gotten quite a few thank yous online. And then there was the triage system of including our friend, former Park Foundation President Brian Tiffany, sent something nice in, it looks like. But just to get to the street trees was the biggest piece. And then after a day or so, we were able to get into the parks and start to take care of that as well, and partner with our operations team, and took care of what they could take care of, but some of the bigger stuff they needed help with as well. Unfortunately, you can still drive through our parks and see some of the damage. Ultimately, it shows kind of how dangerous these storms are. And unfortunately, the city of Cincinnati lost a lot of really good tree canopy. Well, look, Molly North makes appearance as well. I use the strong arm emoji quite a lot. I love it. Anyways, thank you to the team. It's just been, I can go on and on. It's been outstanding, and it shows the importance of that work, not just for keeping parks beautiful, but keeping the city operating. Next up, the Green Team wrap up. So Crystal mentioned the Green Team in her presentation. We were delighted to once again partner with Groundwork Ohio River Valley to have teenagers work with us this summer. We had 6 kids and 2 Green Team leaders from Groundwork Ohio River Valley and Mount Echo. You can see some great photos of them out there working to restore some trail. They improved invasive species, fixed up the trail tremendously. It was amazing. I kind of went out to find them one morning, and I was just on my own. So I just started down the trail and walked till I heard noise. And as I walked, I was in a nice, clean trail. And I got to them, and I talked to them and hung out with them for a little bit. And then I finished the trail by heading up. And as you move past them, the trail was in much different shape. And you can see that we've been working this trail for a while. I don't think it's fully finished yet. But they warned me. They're like, you might want to go back the other way. I was like, I can figure this out. But it was a much different trail to finish than it was to start because of their hard work. And we've got a short video. We always struggle with sound. It's a short video. I'm sure it's posted online, but he was one of the kids I met that morning. He might be a future Parks employee himself. He was talking about he had worked in the program as a high school student, and now he's in college, and he was a crew leader this year. I will leave them to figure out if we have AV or not.
Toasty in here.
Oh, yep. It's getting cool earlier. Now this is a weird room. So we've got a bunch of events coming up. Tonight, we've got our quarterly CPAC meeting at Gibson House at 5 p.m. where we're going to talk about great events and volunteer activities coming up this fall. And we're also providing you with an update on conservation and land management, much like what you saw today. Saturday, we have the dedication of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial statue that's going to be on the northeast corner of Reading and MLK. This is a really cool project that the city manager is has sponsored and has managed the construction of. She asked that Parks enter into an MOU with her office to maintain the area, which they'll fund, of course, and we've agreed to do that. And so it's just a really cool partnership. I think it's gonna be a great addition to the city. There's gonna be an event from 11 to 3 p.m. That will include the unveiling, but we'll also have all kinds of like lawn games that we're providing and other stuff. This is this Saturday, the 22nd. Shakespeare in the Park at Stanbury Park is this Sunday, the 23rd. Stanbury Park Advisory Council hosting a free performance of Much Ado by Cincinnati Shakespeare Company. You can see that. First Friday at Bellevue Pavilion is coming up on September 4th. This is a collaboration between the Cuff Neighborhood Association, Esoteric Brewing, and Cincinnati Parks Foundation. They've been going on all summer long, and the last is the following First Friday, which is October 2nd. So that's coming up. McAvoy engagement, as Travis mentioned earlier, Wednesday, September 9th, we're doing an engagement at the College Hill Recreation Center at 5:30. Should be a great event. We've really, I got to compliment Travis and Rocky's team have done a great job to really target and canvas the community, not just to push it on Facebook and to send it to the community council, but to really look at partner organizations and others to try to get that going. It's been great. Riverfest, Labor Day weekend, fireworks, one of Cincinnati's tradition, takes place at 9 p.m. Also coincides with Riverfest West, where you can see the fireworks from Mount Echo Park. And Riverfest West will have food, music, drinks, all kinds of fun family activities. And then lastly, on September 12th is the 25th annual Buddy Walk at Sawyer Point, Yeaman's Cove. The event celebrates and supports individuals with Down syndrome in Cincinnati, and is our region's largest Down syndrome awareness fundraising event, drawing over 15,000 participants a year.
Great meeting, didn't set any records.
We did not, but we've had some quick ones.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. Any comments?
Raise them throughout.
Commissioners?